everyone realizes it's not on the level. Right? It's like, okay, great. They've made their shirts with rainbows. They have their pink pussy hats. They have all these things. They have Black Lives Matter t-shirts. And yet how they run the companies hasn't changed. How they treat their employees hasn't changed. The world hasn't changed that much. So I think people are like, excuse me, I'm going to save my money for a nap dress.
Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of corporate colonization of important social causes. And I want to draw a quick distinction. I don't think that it's wrong for like any corporation to sound off about any issue. We're talking specifically about the point at which it goes from being like, oh, cool, a bunch of people who work for this company are trying to put something out there that's positive in the world, and these people are just full of shit. Like, because there is a line. So I want to talk about something called pinkwashing, which actually has two meanings. I want to talk about something called greenwashing, which is kind of like pinkwashing, but about the environment, and just the sort of feminism incorporating that happened with other issues as well. So greenwashing is the original cause marketing term. I learned this yesterday as I was doing research on this. Greenwashing was coined by an environmentalist who wrote an essay in 1986 about the hotel industry. So like, you know, when you go to a hotel and they have that little placard that's like, we're saving the environment. Don't wash your towels. In 1986, we knew that was crap. Like that, the hotels that put those things in rooms are making little to no effort to actually reducing energy waste. And in a lot of cases, they're just trying to not have to pay people to do work. They're not trying to really reduce energy consumption. So that's like a term of like, you know, it means that the hotels are trying to get credit for being environmentally savvy without actually doing anything. Pinkwashing is a term that was invented in 2011 in reference to Israel trying to promote itself as a bastion of gay rights in the Middle East while it was violating the human rights of Palestinians. So now things like pinkwashing mean anytime a corporation uses, hey, we like gay people, everything's great, while doing things that are actively harmful to members of marginalized communities. So that's just a little bit of a like basis of what we're talking about. Tien, I'm going to start with you today. I have noticed this year especially that there has been a lot of backlash against corporate involvement in Pride. I just would love to hear what your experience has been with like corporate pride meddling and how you feel about the whole thing.
I mean, I find it to be deeply obnoxious only because there is so much pinkwashing. Like I think there was like a meme that was going around that like all of these corporations like AT&T, Verizon, CVS had like changed their logos to be rainbows. And I love thinking about the graphic design person who's not being paid enough to like lay out the rainbow in like like a Comcast logo. But then they also on the back end are donating money, like tons of money, to anti-LGBTQ politicians. So like to me, it's such a gross level of virtue signaling that like we should continue to call out, because you shouldn't get to have it both ways. You shouldn't get to feel good about like a positive message when you're actively harming folks in secret, which makes it even gross. But I will say that anytime I see a commercial with lesbians, I cry. So like the first time I saw Wells Fargo had like a lesbian couple financial planning, I was like, I feel seen, and our money matters. Okay,
they want our money too.
They want our money too. The Oreo commercial that went around last year.
I love the Oreo commercial.
Oh my God, that Oreo commercial got me. It got me so bad. Even though like the end is like the dad painted the fence rainbows, I was like, this is too on the nose, but I'm weeping at this Oreo commercial.
I mean, like, there's something to be said for like visibility and stuff. Like you mentioned gay women not being very visible in advertisements. And that's actually true. The first ad that was televised in the US to feature a gay couple featured two white men in a relationship. It was for IKEA, obviously. And it was in 1994. And it was just like these two very masculine presenting white men talking about how like they enjoy shopping at IKEA for furniture.
It's very sweet. I just watched it. It's very sweet.
It is very, especially for like 1994, pretty progressive. But, you know, in the history of marketing, lesbians have been very invisible, you know, and it's only been in recent years that it hasn't been used as like titillation in like network tween drama type shows. So it's like kind of cool, I would imagine, to see that sort of thing. But at the same time, it's like, you know, it's still, they want your money, you know?
Yes. Yep.
Shaniqua, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, Juneteenth is about to be declared a federal holiday. Do you anticipate that corporations will sort of colonize Juneteenth? Are you like feeling yourself sort of like,
oh yes, there will be sales and you can like get stuff discounted. I'm sure they'll like, I think it'll feel like Black History Month, where they put a little bit of effort in, like, oh, let's talk about history, but get this 50% off, you know, anything to bring people into the stores. I can never not think about McDonald's. Now, I will say they are consistent. They're like advertising targeting Black people is year round, but it still feels a little pandery. But I think that's the kind of stuff we'll see around Juneteenth. So yeah, it's weird. I mean, I'm happy that more people are talking about it, know about it, understand it. But the way that we celebrate holidays in the United States is to like have cookouts. And, you know, I think about Memorial Day. Like, why do we come together and have cookouts for that? Like, it's kind of weird.
It is really weird. You know, like I really like Dia de los Muertos in the way that it's like we have a cookout at the grave. Like, you know, if there's going to be a grave centric holiday, we should be like, we are having the celebration literally in the cemetery. It's like, it's awesome. Absolutely no sarcasm there. It's the best. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, like, Shaniqua, I bet you've thought about this. What is the line between like a positive, like corporate message and like straight up like obfuscation of like social harm that a company is doing? Can you think of any like particularly egregious examples of somebody speaking up in favor of like a social movement and then behind the scenes doing harm? Like Tien mentioned with like anti-LGBT politicians receiving donations from companies that have rainbow logos.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually the same thing that they do when we're talking about Black Lives Matter. Like last summer, I don't know how I felt seeing all these corporations issue these statements, a lot of them saying we stand with Black Lives Matter or just saying Black Lives Matter. You know, we're in this fight for social justice, when maybe 6 to 12 months before that, like they would have never uttered that. They would have been afraid that they may have lost consumers, not thinking about maybe the consumers they might have gained from taking a stance. But when we actually get to last summer, all of these corporations are saying like, we really care about Black people. You know, we don't like police violence. I don't know that they said that they wanted to end it. But just generally, look where we are now with all these voting rights laws. And those statements were so well crafted. You know, they made me think, okay, maybe they're going to step in and do something when it's time. And now we're here now and they're not. And so, you know, I don't think it's a new thing, but I think corporations, they really like to play both sides. And what was, I think the most poignant thing for me was last summer, you had more than just kind of like Black people and immediate allies saying Black Lives Matter, we have to stop police violence. You had a lot more white people and a lot of people, you know, people of color with higher incomes, more disposable incomes, who saw the George Floyd video, said this is not okay, and started speaking out. And so now at that point, it starts to feel like it's in the company's economic interest to care about these things. But as we've also seen, a lot of the donations they said that they were going to make have not gone out, but also support for Black Lives Matter has gone down. So it seems like their actual concern is tied to people who have money to spend on their goods and how they feel about things. And if they don't care that much, then the corporations don't have to care that much either.
Alyssa, you and I have kind of discussed this, like kind of, you and I were both kind of working in an adjacent to quote unquote women's media during a time when feminism was kind of turning from something that entailed like advocacy for specific policies into something that was a little bit more like a fashionable label. And I would love to hear your thoughts on why you think that marketers and corporations do this over and over again for things from feminism to LGBTQ rights to Black Lives Matter. Why? What do you think is behind it?
Erin, I'm going to say money. Here's the thing is that it all changes with the more, as Shaniqua was saying, the more disposable income certain groups of people have, the more they are targeted for, like, it's like, okay, Alyssa, you're making more money than you did when you were in the government. How do you want to express your purchasing? You know, how do you want to express yourself through purchasing? And I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And like for me, look, I am a basic bitch when it comes to this stuff. Do I get targeted? Yes. Do I buy into it sometimes? Sure I do. Okay? I'm not going to fucking pretend I'm better than I am. And the thing though for me is for these companies, my question is always like, okay, if you're going to make a pussy hat, who does the money from the pussy hat go to? Mm-hmm. If it's just going to you, like this is where I think that companies, like I want to meet all the people that get paid a lot of money for corporate social responsibility, because literally I could do all of your jobs in 5 minutes. It's like if you are making money on a sweater that you put a rainbow on and it says love is love, well, are you taking all the money for yourself, this love is love sweatshirt, or are you sending it maybe, like if I were a company that wanted to make pride sweaters and show that I supported the community, I would say that all proceeds are going to go to helping fund the Pulse Memorial down in Florida. Mm-hmm. You know, I would find ways to say, look, okay, I'm a fucking capitalist pig, sure, but I'm going to try and lead by example here and show that you can be a capitalist pig, but you can also, when you want to truly support an issue, at least overtly, right? I mean, corporate policies for how you treat your employees, all of that stuff. Let's put that aside and just talk about the actual capitalism of it all. That to me, it's like it's such low-hanging fruit that it is shocking when they miss the opportunity to at least do something that is, you know, materially beneficial to the people they're purporting to support, and then, you know, and themselves. So it's, you know, it's like, look, they send, everybody knows because of Facebook and all those other fucking people, they all know how much money we make. They know how we spend our money. They know where we spend our money. They target us. Well, at least, you know, it's like, you know, you've got us. So just do something that is actually going to make at least a small real difference.
Well, I would just add in that they do. It just fucks over the people they claim to love. Like they literally take our money and go give it to these bad politicians to pass
exactly.
these awful laws. And it's just like a slap in the face. I'd actually rather them just like keep it to themselves if they're not going to do something good with it. But just to, I guess, pour salt in the wound.
Right.
I think the other thing that is frustrating too is that when these corporations do enter into like talking about social movements, it's always the most palatable or safe version of it.
Yep.
It's the like very entry level, how can we be the least offensive, when it's like, as you dig deeper, specifically with like Pride, for example, like we have more anti-trans bills trying to be passed throughout the country in history, more than ever. And these corporations have the power to, you know, make a statement and try to push back. And they're not, because that's like the harder issue of the LGBTQ community that they don't want to touch because it's like, it's too controversial. Mm-hmm. But what is nice is like, you know, long-haired lesbians in commercials, that's fine. You know, like that's what's also very frustrating is that they enter into the conversation at the like tip of the iceberg level.
It's like bandwagoning. They'll wait until it's completely safe and then they'll jump on and be like, I'm brave. It's like, no, you're not. The people that were brave were like the like AIDS activists that were causing problems and ruckuses when it was not popular, you know?
Yeah.
And a thing that I was thinking about on that note, Tien, was, you know, I think a few years ago when there was anti-trans bathroom laws in a couple places, there were big moneyed interests that actually were like, okay, this is your law, we're moving our shit, which I think is a good use of corporate heft. It's like, okay, cool, we're going to pull this out of the economy. Georgia, I think after Georgia passed an abortion ban a few years ago, there were places that were threatening to take their business elsewhere. there was a piece in the New York Times by Linda Greenhouse, she's a legal writer, and she writes a lot about abortion law. And she was talking about how recently, Texas just passed essentially a ban on abortion at 6 weeks gestation, which is like 2 weeks after a person's missed period. And no corporations are doing anything about that, And, you mentioned like every single company does like Mother's Day things, does Father's Day things, does holiday related things. And I kind of want to say like, oh, you love veterans so much, like, what do you have in place to help hire veterans? Like, do you have any policies in place? Oh, you love mothers so much? What's your maternity leave policy? Oh, you love fathers so much? Like, do you have a paternity leave policy that matches your maternity leave policy so fathers can also be caregivers? Like, there are all these things like within companies, I think, that are sometimes like lacking in the way they treat their own employees. It's not just like where the money is going. It's like their own employees are not doing very well. Alyssa, do you think that like cause marketing has become, it's sort of reached a tipping point where it seems like everyone is annoyed with it this year? Why do you think that is? Do you think it's like a generational thing? Do you think Gen Z is over it where millennials were sort of like, yeah, we love cause marketing? Like, what do you think is behind that?
I think for millennials, cause marketing was new. And so I think there was like an assumption that there was like a lot more meaning behind it, right? That these companies were doing it because they felt it, that it was more than just marketing, right? That it was an ethos. And I think that people have realized that that's not the case. I think people have drawers full of shirts with slogans and sayings on them for causes that haven't made a lot of progress since aforementioned T-shirts were purchased. So I think that, now it's like everyone realizes it's not on the level, right? It's like, okay, great. They've made their shirts with rainbows. They have their pink pussy hats. They have all these things. They have Black Lives Matter T-shirts. And yet how they run the companies hasn't changed. How they treat their employees hasn't changed. The world hasn't changed that much. So I think people are like, excuse me, I'm going to save my money for a nap dress.
Thank you for sending me a nap dress in the mail, by the way.
Wait,
Alyssa.
what is that?
Oh, it is a nightgown that
it's
you're
the
supposed to wear
ultimate
outside.
marketing ploy that I fell victim to. Like I said, I'm a basic bitch, you guys.
It is a nightgown. For sure, it is a nightgown. I wanted to talk very briefly before we kind of close this part of the conversation. Shaniqua, Mackenzie Scott, what do you think about her? She's given away $8 billion. Is she like the good billionaire?
If you look at it, everything's always in relative terms. I think what she is doing is great and nice. Just and put a period on the end of that. Or maybe it's a comma but. It's a comma but. Like she's definitely better than, her ex-husband. But why does she have that much money? I often, when I think about the government and philanthropy, even though our democracy's fucked up, we elect our elected officials. They make decisions about what to do with tax dollars and who gets that and where it goes. But in philanthropy, individuals are making huge decisions, especially if you have that much money, just directing money where they believe these investments should be made. And I personally am a strong proponent of direct cash payments to people to let them make decisions about what they need in their lives so that they can better themselves. Not to say that her money is going to waste. I think it's going to really good things, but I think it's hard for me to ever say someone's, well, I mean, yeah, I know she got this money, but still where it came from, people have been exploited. So it's hard for me to ever say there's a good billionaire because the foundation or the origins of that money they're never good. But I think relative to others, she's definitely higher on the list.
Yeah, I got a flurry of emails yesterday that were like, Mackenzie Scott gives more money than we've ever received from anybody before. And it was like Dance Theater of Harlem. It was
great places.
Yeah. It was good. It was good places, but you're absolutely right that it came from exploitation and not good situations.
Yeah.
Tien, what do you make of charitable giving, high profile charitable giving from the super wealthy and by mega corporations, just any entity that has that amount of money to give?
I mean, same thing as what Shaniqua said. I think it's you have to look at where it comes from. And I also think it lets people get away with doing the bare minimum of changing like all, the systemic inequity that we have. Like when she gave all that money, and now we're like, okay, so some people can say like, well, actually there can be good rich people. And then we just like continue to let that happen instead of maybe looking deeper into why these people have all this money, why these corporations have all this power, and how can we actually address what is happening.
Yeah.
I think it's with the donations and with like corporate cause marketing, I think it just lets people off the hook to have a little moment to feel good, when it should be more of a sustained and also like full solution that we're trying to find. But instead we're just like, cool, I'll buy this tea and be happy that I donated to this organization and I feel good.
Yeah. I don't know why I've been thinking about this for the past 3 weeks. If I was a billionaire, what I would actually do with all this money. I really, there's been this conversation about we can't find people to work because they're too lazy. They're keeping their unemployment, and governors are taking away these extended unemployment benefits. To me, a good billionaire would set up some kind of system where they are literally paying people until they can find the work that they want to do at the wage they want to do. And like, no one can take that away. And then that is something that can have like a systemic change on our labor market where people are forced to pay more, and they can't just take away these benefits because this billionaire is just giving out all the money. So if a billionaire did that, then I would deem them
a little bit. I love that. Like a billionaire fucking with the labor market by being like, no, you're getting paid $15 an hour. And until any of these businesses are matching it,
I'll pay you.
Which could also happen, to Shaniqua's point, if said billionaires were just paying their normal taxes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So this is my thing, is that like, if they just paid their normal taxes, if they just paid the amount of taxes that I pay, how much money that would put back into the system to be able to do really good things for people. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to be too critical of Mackenzie, because at least she's doing something. I mean, there are just like thousands of people out there who are just like sitting on their money. And at least, because of some of the things she's doing, people's lives will materially improve in some way. It may not be the way that they would have chosen, right? If you said, because Shaniqua, to your point, it's a real crisis management theory that when you have anyone who is struggling with something, the fastest way to turn them from a victim mentality to a survivor mentality is to give them a choice. And so your point is exactly right, in that when you give someone a direct payment, they can choose how to take control of their life. And so, by people just paying their normal taxes, EW wouldn't have to chase after them and threaten them with higher taxes, which, not for nothing. And like you guys know, I'm like progressive in my core, but it's like the higher the taxes get, it's just normal people who are going to end up paying, who are like good citizens. Yes. It's not, Jeff, like I have a hard time. I don't want them to pay more than they're supposed to. I just want them to pay what they're supposed to.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. There's so many perfectly legal ways that very rich people get out of paying taxes.
Perfectly legal. Just pay them.
Yeah, just pay them. Yeah, I totally agree. And also, there is a way for, billionaires for the most part don't have like, thousands of employees that they are directly paying out of, Mackenzie Scott does not own Mackenzie Scott Incorporated. She has like a philanthropic organization, but like a corporation like Coca-Cola or AT&T or Amazon does have the power to make direct payments to people by paying them a lot more money.
Yes.
Like you have a lot of money. Like, and that's another problem with, I think, the whole cause marketing thing, is that by marketing a cause to consumers and not taking care of the people that are providing them with all of the labor, they're sort of, it sort of whitewashes, or, pink washes or green washes or, female symbol washes, whatever, feminism washes. It just completely obscures the good that a corporation can do, which is to allow the people that are creating the product to actually share in the profits, which I feel like we need to all put berets on right now, because we just went full on we went full on communist, but that's okay.